Thanks for staying with us here on Sunrise. Well, youth truly are the architects of our future. And so this morning, we'll explore the implications of violence among them and against them. Joining us to dissect the topic further is Communications Coordinator at the Jamaica Advocacy Network, well, Shanique Bowden. We have Shanique Bowden joining us. Welcome to Sunrise, Shanique.
Yes, good morning. Just a quick correction on my title. I'm actually the Executive Director.
Executive Director, thank you very much. I expected that. Right. So, Shanique, thanks for joining us. It is so important, this issue of violence against youth, violence perpetrated by youth. In terms of the numbers as you see them, what is the prevalence of youth violence in Jamaica?
I mean, I can't definitely speak very specifically as to the numbers, especially, in recent times. But anecdotally, of course, we are seeing that violence affects our young people just as much as it's affecting the wider society, even more so. And we see this violence in many different ways in terms of course, physical violence as well as sexual violence against our children and just generally our children facing tremendous abuse across different sectors, whether in their home, amongst themselves, peer-to-peer abuse in their communities, in their churches, so to speak, as well as their schools. So the numbers, what I can definitely say, X percent or X 9 out of 10 instances of violence are perpetrated against children. We do see quite an alarming number of reports, and that is also just like reports that we do see, and we, about the reports that don't come out in the wider scale media, but we do see quite a bit happening as it relates to our children and how violence is being meted out against them.
We often say that Jamaica has a violence problem. We are a society bedeviled by violence, and so violence affects all demographics. A part of the challenge, how do you view, for instance, the problem of us bringing children into the adult world of violence such that they are now increasingly perpetrating violence and they are the victims of the violence as well?
I mean, I think you sort of said it yourself. It is just generally violence is something that is so normalized within our communities, within our country as a large, that we perhaps don't see how in a very direct way our children are internalizing that. So our children are not only like victims of violence themselves in the sense that they are the ones who the violence is being meted out against, but they're also viewers. They see something happen within their home between mommy and daddy. They see something happen at school between teacher and student, or between student and students in their communities, on the bus going to and from school. So it is something that is so normalized that I don't think we actually make a conscious decision about whether we are taking a stock to see if our children are also seeing and witnessing these things, because it's just the norm. So it stands to reason then that because they're so exposed to it, it becomes something that forms part of their modus operandi, so to speak, something that is normalized for them, something that, if they're having a bad day, they think it's okay to lash out because that's something that's around them from time to time. If somebody does something wrong to them, they think perhaps the proper response is to, push them or do something back to them, because that's things that they see within their own communities, within their own homes. And then we don't even get into the issue of like what they're seeing in the media, what they're seeing on TV, and these pranks on TikTok and that sort of things that may seem funny on TikTok, but underlying some much larger issues, so to speak. So it really is a multifaceted view, in the fact that really it boils down to, I don't think we make conscious decisions about what our children are or aren't seeing and how they're internalizing that.
Shanique, you work very closely with children, and, you're very linked and knowledgeable on the issues. I'm curious to know, what do you think are some initiatives that could help with, turning things around for youth, ensuring their success, their well-being moving forward in Jamaica?
So I definitely do think that one of the things that Jamaica generally lacks, I don't think we are short of social programs. By all means, we can possibly have more and they can be more streamlined. But one of the things that I think is very lacking is that there is not enough knowledge about the resources that are available. Are being run by the government or private sector, as the case may be, there's a general knowledge gap. And I think this also even extends to me in the spaces that I occupy, that sometimes I hear about things and I'm like, never knew this existed. And this was around 5, 6 years. This is the third initiative that they're doing about this, that sort of thing. But just generally as well, in terms of like increasing knowledge about what already exists, there is also a general need to ensure that we are being as accessible as we can in terms of what already does exist. So even within the context of our own work that we do at JM, one of the things that we're really focusing on this year is getting outside of Kingston, because we do quite a lot of interventions in Kingston, and Kingston is one part of Jamaica, right? So to ensure that we can also bring our own knowledge, our own interests, our own capacities to the other communities, other parishes, so to speak. In terms of other tangible things that I see that are necessary, we definitely need a more concentration on safe spaces for young people. Just last year at the Youth Mental Health Summit that UNICEF had in collaboration with JAN and the Ministry of Health, one big thing that really came up was that there was a lack of safe spaces for young people to go and get help, to go and get resources, to go and just talk to somebody because they're having a bad day. And we also just generally need to make sure that these safe spaces in of themselves are scattered across the island, are accessible, are available. We need to also focus more intensely on availability of counseling services beyond what is already there in the schools, like through the guidance counselors, because that in and of itself, I understand is still somewhat not a very ideal situation. That's what we're hearing from young people. So we need to ensure that we are having more access to trained counselors and psychologists that our children can access free of cost, ideally, to be able to talk through some of the issues that they're having.
From where you sit at the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network, to what extent are you interested in partnering with other NGOs, INGOs, and governmental organizations even, to implement some of these programs that you think are best suited for improving the fate of young people as it relates to violence?
I mean, we're definitely interested in doing that. It's something that is very dear to us. Child protection issues are one of our core thematic areas, and we're very interested in ensuring that our children are protected across all levels. Just last year, we did some work with UN Women, for example, through their Spotlight initiative to do capacity building and sensitization sessions around gender-based violence. And we hear gender-based violence all the time about how it affects women, or it also affects men, but we don't also kind of drill down and looking at how gender-based violence starts to affect children from a very young age, both as victims as well as viewers of GBV, as I alluded to earlier, in terms of just general violence. But I think it's really important that we have more sustained opportunities to be able to talk to young people about these issues from a lens that, they're generally more receptive when they're hearing from their peers, so to speak, or not someone who's not a teacher. So we go in and we generally get good reception from them when we're talking to them about sensitive topics, because it's someone who is really trying to bring it down to their level, trying to bring it down to a way that they can understand and can also apply in their daily life. So we definitely have a very strong interest, and we definitely try and participate in the different processes as we see them. So, when our government is talking about reviewing legislation, and it's the thing with the mandatory minimum sentences the other day, we were definitely on top of that, because it's something that we definitely think needs to be handled with a level of a level of care, rather, as well as ensuring that at all times we are advocating for the best interest of the child to be the paramount consideration.
Shanique,
Definitely.
So knowledgeable, and I feel like we could talk about this. Yes,
very practical.
And I feel like we could really talk about this more. I hope we can get to talk about this some more with you. That was Shanique Bowden, Executive Director of Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network. Coming up next, it's Law and Order JA. We'll be right back.